And we're live. Hello. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Thursday on, what is today? Today is the 13th. Thursday the 13th, although it might as well be Friday the 13th. We are in, well, not at this exact minute, but we have been in torrential downpour here in South Florida. My hair is looking super puffy tonight. I don't know why. I don't like it like that. Anyway, it's great to see you all on Pontificating with Pete on Generational Change. Slight change of plans. We are unfortunately going to be stuck with a different guest this evening, but one that I think you'll like, and she'll be here shortly. So for those of you who were expecting Miko Peled to come on the show tonight, he unfortunately is in California and had to cancel last minute, but he is going to be likely coming on the show either on Monday or Thursday of next week. So I apologize for anybody who was anticipating that he was going to be here. But I want you all to know that the guest we are going to have as a backup, because I always come through in the clutch, is definitely somebody who I think you're going to like. So just be on the lookout. That guest will be here. Give it like 10 minutes. 10 minutes or so. And we should be good. I am going to make sure that link gets sent over ASAP. Colin, be on the lookout for that. Got a lot to talk about this evening, obviously, with the congressional races that are heating up. Well, really, it's one. It's Jamal Bowman and George Latimer, which we will cover. We're going to have to talk about AOC, obviously, not so much because of, I've like anything to say about her pertaining to the race with George between Jamal Bowman and George Latimer. The real issue with her is this live stream that she conducted the other day with multiple members that belong to the Israel lobby. And while I would be tempted to get into that early, I really, if there is a place that I would want to start, but like I said, we're gonna wait for our guest to show up. I'm trying to get a read on. Okay, so I see what you pulled over there. So you got all of those ads that came up, but I want to give you guys an idea because this clip is coming from our good friends over at Status Coup. This is what we're up against, guys. This is how serious this movement is, and I will say this. I was checking social media earlier on Jen's page, and there was a guy who I thought was possibly just trying to find a reason to actually conduct some type of a legitimate conversation. That was not the case. Of course, I was had, but, nobody's perfect. And so the person was talking about, hey, how come you're not talking about local issues, things that really matter in the district? We do, but, I wanted to see where this guy was coming from. And so it turns out that he was just a massive Zionist and thought that Jen was ragging on Jews. And it's amazing what they're capable of doing when they really want to lock in on a specific topic and they really want to drill it home just how much they do not like people questioning their colonialism. Because let's be honest, that's really a big part of it. A big part of what we are fighting against is this massive wave of corporate special interest power that has taken over our country. It's always been there, but now it's just out in full view, which I think a lot of people never really realized before. And so today we are finding ourselves more and more having to deal with that reality. And when I think about all of the things that have been going on over the past 24 to 48 hours, which I think is important for people to realize, and I think this relates to anybody who is a South Florida resident who's wondering, why are there like certain issues that we don't talk about here? We are going to talk about them with our guest. So bear with me for a minute. But as you can see here, this is what it's like having to deal with that, with the fact that the Zionists have basically sucked all the air out of the room. That's what we're dealing with here. So here's a clip of something that was brought to my attention by our good friends at Status Coup that had happened earlier today. All eyes on what's going on, not just in Gaza, but of course what's happening here at home.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Now, wait a minute. I thought Palestine doesn't exist. I mean, call me crazy, but on the one hand, they say Palestine doesn't exist, and now they're saying F Palestine. Well, make up your mind. Can they ever get their story straight? But that's the thing about being a liar. When you're a liar, you always have to come up with new lies. That's the thing about telling the truth, as our esteemed fearless leader Jen Perlman likes to say. There is no point in lying because you'll never get your story straight. This is something that seems to be a problem for the Israel, but Israel isn't real, but that's a whole other story. We'll continue.
Free Palestine. There is only one solution.
Fuck you, bitch. What do you say? Step back. Hey, back you. Back up, buddy. Back up. Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
You're the biggest. Everybody's got to be on the sidewalk. Everyone's got to be on the sidewalk. Let's go.
Fuck Palestine. Fuck Palestine. Fuck Palestine.
You know, I've been saying for the longest time, the amount, first of all, it's so obvious that the Zionists are the antagonists and the Free Palestine protesters are the peaceful people. It's just so clear as day. On the other hand, what is amazing is how much they really think they can get away with this abhorrent behavior. I'm trying to be as generous with my words as I can possibly be. And let's also remember that a lot of them think that they're really Teflon when the cops are around, that they could just get away with whatever they want. That's why they're so incendiary about their behavior. They really don't see it as there could be any consequences for their actions. That saying what they're saying is going to cause them any type of grief. It isn't. And so we'll continue and finish it out.
There is only one solution! There is only one solution!
Antifada revolution!
There is only one solution! There is only one solution! Antifada revolution!
We own your ass! We own your ass! We own you! We own you, buddy!
Oh, and he just spit. Well, I can assure that this scrawny piece of shit who wouldn't stand 5 seconds in an actual fight if he had to get into one. Look, right now, they're feeling very empowered. They're feeling that they can't be touched. But that's going to change. It always does. Because history is showing right now that the way things are evolving, this movement's not going away. No matter how much they think it's going to affect their lives. They're going to have the ability to affect people economically right now. But that's eventually going to turn its head around because it's not going to last. And especially the way things are changing around the world, people are just not going to do business with the United States. And if you don't think that the actions of the Zionist movement is not having a profound effect on people's feelings and, let's just say, economic philosophy towards doing business with the United States, that is changing by the day. By the day, people are looking for another path forward to avoid having to do business because this is American colonialism in its full form. Basically thinking that they can get away with this forever. Can they? Who knows?
We own you!
My question is, why are they even marching anywhere near each other at the same time? That's an important question, but if anybody can answer that, I can see that our guest is here and will probably be available shortly. But make no mistake, while they may feel that they're in a position of strength right now, day by day, that's changing. And the constant need to create new stories, new excuses, doesn't change the fact that we're dealing with a genocide. That's the key. And if anybody can speak to that issue, it is the person who is, well, making or at least trying to make a significant difference for us on a day-to-day basis. Like I said, I got the shaft at the last minute by Mr. Paulette. I'm sure that he had something come up. It happens. I wish it doesn't have to happen at the last minute, but like I said, I'm usually pretty good on my feet. I can get something done on the fly. So is our guest ready? Thumbs up. Yes, you can hear me. Ready? Okay. So I think you may have heard of this person before. Has been a guest on this show a time or two, and think very, very highly of this person. Oh, who am I kidding? It's Jen Perlman.
Hello. I almost feel bad. I almost feel like we're going to have to officially stop doing that. And I almost feel bad saying this, guys, but I think we're going to have to cancel future Festivi just based on my thoughts about Jerry Seinfeld at this point.
Well, of course, Double K didn't know you were coming,
Double
but maybe she
K.
did. And that's probably the reason why, you know, I can't dance for the cash. It's definitely not something that it's not my responsibility, but I do the best I can. And so clearly when well, Colinello approves, you know, when I look around and I see what's going on, I do see that there is change in the air, but there is no question that they're going to resort to very devastatingly dangerous tactics in order to maintain this level of status quo colonialism. But as the clip has shown, they're very brazen in their approach to how they kind of see this whole thing evolving. And what really strikes me is, more than anything else, is what do they think the end game is? What do you perceive based on your conversations with people on the campaign trail, people on the phones, especially the ones that you may run into that are in favor of the state of Israel maintaining its current status and no changes whatsoever? How do they ultimately see this concluding? Because this can't last forever.
I get asked all the time, mostly when I'm on the dialer, like, how does this go and how does this end? And I get mentioned before, it's not going to end with Israel voluntarily saying, okay, we're going to agree to allow Palestinian self-determination and we're going to allow a Palestinian state to exist next door to us. That is never going to happen. And so until people in this country and other countries realize that, nothing will happen. Hey, Steve. Because at the end of the day, we're sitting here thinking that there's going to be some negotiation when Israel has made it clear that they will not abide those things. So I don't understand why we don't just finally believe them for what they're saying. I mean, they're not going to abide that. So why would we believe that? So the only way this is going to end is with the entire world, basically, like via the United Nations, UN, via peacekeeper boots on the ground. It's going to require going in and forcing this to become an actual democratic nation, which I would think we'd be big on. We seem to like to do that everywhere else.
You know,
Don't we like to bring democracy to the world?
Well, they hate us for freedom. You know, we've got to bring freedom to the people. They need the help, and we're gonna philosophize and politicize their country for the better. You know, I'll never forget how bad it was having Bushy in the White House. But you know, it's funny. I figure of everything happens for a reason, as you like to say, and the fact that you're coming on as a special guest this evening, I think it would only be appropriate for you to provide commentary for. I mean, for those of you who don't know who Donny Deutsch is, you know, he's somebody who has had Trump derangement syndrome from the very beginning. MSNBC commentator. He is a Nepo baby. He is the product of his father's success, which he took over. I believe it was it an advertising agency?
Yes, Donny Deutsch.
Yeah.
Well, it's advertising. Yeah.
So what I think a lot of people forget or may not forget about Donny Deutsch is that as hard and as anti-Trump as he was, especially on Morning Joe and just MSNBC in general, he was caught once when the prospect, shortly after Bernie Sanders had won the Nevada caucus and was the front runner to become the nominee in 2020. Of course, we don't know how that worked out, but for a shining moment, it did look like Bernie had an excellent chance to become the nominee and perhaps change the country for the better. And Donny Deutsch made it very clear that if Bernie Sanders was the nominee, he was going to vote for Donald Trump. And then, of course, you had Joe Scarborough basically telling him, whoa, 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 you're not supposed to say that on TV. That's not a good idea. And of course, he's like, oh, yeah, right. I forgot I'm on TV. I'm not allowed to say that on TV. I have to pretend like I give a shit about average people, which of course he doesn't. And so if you thought that was bad, he gave his very poignant viewpoints the other day regarding what's going on in the Middle East. And of course, Donny Deutsch is a Zionist, very proud Zionist. Again, checks all the boxes as an Ashkenazi, not a surprise. But this is a very hard rant, if you will, to listen to. But we're going to need Jen's commentary on this one. So here we go.
To start to really talk honestly about the definition of civilian casualties. 4 hostages rescued and 270 Palestinian civilians killed. We need to start to look at that word civilians. When the hostages were being held by a Palestinian journalist, a civilian, and a Palestinian doctor, a civilian, these are not civilians. These are Hamas ambassadors. And yes, there are innocents.
Really? Jen, thoughts?
Well, first of all, my thought is he looks like crap. I mean, I haven't seen him in years, but Donnie, you look horrible. But that aside, I'm not sure exactly what he's like. This is just brainwashed propaganda talking points. He has no idea what he's talking about. MSNBC? Well, why are we watching this swill?
Well, I think it's very telling when somebody feels the need to go on to MSNBC, for example, and say that there is no such thing as Palestinian civilians. They're all Hamas actors or supporters. The dehumanization, as you have so often suggested, is the way that they're able to justify their actions. And Donny Deutsch is saying this potentially to, maybe a few million people that are going to hear it. Now, granted, a lot of the people who are viewers of MSNBC, especially a show like Morning Joe, are not people that generally care very much for the least of these to begin with. That's not who that voting demographic is catered to. But just the fact that he would go on national television and make this statement really says a lot about just how brazen the Zionist movement truly is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're desperate too.
There is this level of desperation. I would agree with that. Because
it's the same thing with, like, you see it both in the public sphere when we see people at the protest, and you see it from the talking heads on TV. They're so angry and vitriolic and so unbelievably defensive that it just completely reeks of desperation. And I'm seeing it all over the place. If you have nothing else to do but basically call names, then you're out of ideas. So I mean, that's all this is fear mongering.
Yeah.
Civilians, but I think back to also the hundreds and thousands of rabid Gazans as they drag their corpse through Gaza, cheering, hysterical with glee and joy. And it's just, once again, the media coverage is, and these were 4 hostages that were taken on a day that 1,200 Israelis were slaughtered, maimed, decapitated, killed in the most gruesome way. And I don't know if Americans had 4 hostages that were taken and we had a rescue mission, and yes, there were 270 casualties, and many of those Palestinian casualties are deep, deep, deep sympathizers of Hamas. Would the coverage be the same way? Would anybody be criticizing the rescue mission, or would it be truly one of heroism? But I do think we have to start to really talk honestly about the definition of civilian casualties.
Let's do that. Let's talk very honestly about the definition of civilian casualties.
Well, according to statistical data, it appears that there are at least 40,000 that are now dead. You believe that the number is significantly higher than that? I do. Inclined to agree with that. Why wouldn't it be? When they say
again, I don't understand that. Again, and I will often say I am not a math person. Like, I am definitely mathematically challenged, like significantly. But you have 2.2 million people in a closed-in space without food or water, being bombed repeatedly, and nobody's really allowed out. How does this end without all of those people dead? So the fact that now it's been, what, 8 months, and there's only 10,000 people over what they said 6 months ago, that's just, to me, just that defies science.
Well, you also have to factor in the famine, the malnourishment that hundreds of thousands of people are dealing with, and every action that has been going on in Gaza has been genocidal by definition. But no one even wants to talk about what's going on in the West Bank and how you can even justify that behavior. And even there, we don't really know very much at all of what is actually going on. And I think part of the reason that is the case, which is, again, another example of how this is a genocide, the fact that there have been at least 120 journalists have been murdered by the IDF. And if you ask me, when you start offing the free speech analysts that are in the area, you probably are trying to hide some really devastatingly bad shit, which is why when they were able to capture the image of the decapitated baby, that was not something that they probably thought that they were going to have to deal with. But then, of course, they came up with every excuse in the book and suggested that it was Hamas that did that and not actually them, which, of course, is a load of bullshit, as we know. I just don't understand how anybody like Donny Deutsch is ever going to live this down when this is all said and done. Like, I don't know how they think there is going to be a light at the end of the tunnel for any of the people who stood in ceremony or in support of this. And he certainly is making it clear that, oh, yeah, I totally support what's going on. And by the way,
people will be dead. That's the thing. You know, not everybody will live to see that reckoning. Not everybody will live to see that the people that are on the wrong side of history have to acknowledge that they were on the wrong side of history. That does take a certain amount of time. I mean, I know what it is for me before. People that are not right on this, it's like, I don't know how you life. It's personal choice. It isn't about that. I think, you know, we don't want you to come over to the good side. We want you to come over to the good side. But at this point, for me, taking you this long to get here are just not my people.
Yeah, they're not my people either. But then again, I find that this issue to be exceptionally disturbing on many levels. And Colin, I don't know if you got my text, but I want you to cue up that clip that I wanted to talk about regarding the flooding that's been going on down here. You know, for anybody who thinks that the only issue that Jen has been talking about on the campaign trail has been Gaza, and obviously it's a huge one because of the fact that her background is that of a Zionist. It is very important for people to understand that there are a lot of local issues that have to be attended to. And for those of you who obviously are new here or may not be up to speed with everything that's been going on, Jen is running for Congress against Debbie Wasserman Schultz again. There is cautious optimism that we might have a chance to pull this off in light of everything that's going on right now. But one of the better examples that's out there is in lieu of the fact that it's not just, I mean, obviously we know where the GOP stands, especially in this state. They do not regard climate change as something to even address. In fact, it's something that has been basically written out of all legislation in Tallahassee. So you can't even address it. But then you have the corporate Democrats that go right along with it, like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who, when she was the top insider trader in the Democratic Party in 2022, was investing in fracking and drilling companies, which, of course, is as bad, if not the worst, form of energy extraction on the planet, and is something that she not only supports, but is willing to profit off of. And so anyone who is not in South Florida, but has been at least paying attention to the news, we have basically dealt with hurricane-level rain in this part of the country for the better part of 3 days now. It just eased up a little bit today for a little while. It's going to start up again tomorrow, and it may go into Saturday. And so if you've seen the footage that's been going on in East Broward County and in East Miami-Dade County, here's a little example of what we've been dealing with.
Is there no sound? There might not be.
I don't believe so.
Yeah. Look, we know that Miami floods every time there's a king tide. So why would people be surprised that this happened? It's amazing to me. And it's going to happen every single year, and yet it keeps happening, but yet there's no different prepper. Like they don't, this year we're going to maybe try something different so we don't have streets flooded.
I have seen from conservatives, their excuse is the engineering's just not good enough and you need to fix that. No, you can only dredge so much and you can only drain so much before eventually there is nowhere to go. And what I have often said is whether you believe climate change is real is kind of irrelevant. You know who does believe climate change is real? The insurance companies. They believe it's real. And it's probably one of the biggest reasons why anybody who thinks that they're going to be able to afford a home in South Florida anymore, goodbye, over, not happening. Try getting an insurance quote. Try getting an interest rate quote and see where it gets you. You won't be able to afford it, or you'll be paying through your nose forever. Other parts of the country are probably going to have better rates at some point, sooner rather than later, but not down here. That's not happening. How in the hell, when you're looking at that type of flooding, do you think that you're going to get insured for anything at a reasonable rate? You can't. It's a disaster zone. And half the state lives south of Lake Okeechobee, which is even more insane. I think there's over 5 million people that live in Miami-Dade County alone. Not going to be able to survive. And I'm not just saying that, you know, you're going to drown, that the king tide's coming in and everybody's going underwater. What I'm saying is there is not going to be an opportunity to save yourselves if we do not take drastic action to deal with this. Now, one of the things that you have mentioned that you would be interested in fighting in a much more profound way if you had the federal seat is municipal rainwater conservation. Can you talk about what that type of benefit might provide? Again, it's not going to stop sea level rise, but it can help in some ways.
Well, I mean, I just started thinking about this a few years ago when I was driving down one of our highways and the water in the rainstorm pours off like in sheets. And I'm thinking, why aren't we collecting rainwater like in cisterns, barrels, at least off the bottom of the highway and at least in some sort of, and we don't collect the rainwater, and yet we have so much flooding. So I had this idea, which clearly it can't be the original idea of this, that what if we collected it and used the rainwater harvesting like we do in for other different things, other residential people in communities, they have that. And Florida is actually one of the more supportive states as far as harvesting rainwater. It is a cost. And it's one of those things where everyone wants to see proven places that have done it and all that. But I actually do believe it's something that we should be working on in areas that have significant flooding. And it can actually end up like really, you know, providing more than half of our gray water in the, you know, I mean, it's one of those things that I think should be a countywide effort, more so than one municipality. But yeah, that would be a start.
But bringing in the federal dollars would be necessary in order to jumpstart the program, you would think?
Yes, you have to. Because the state, yeah, I mean, especially in a place like Florida, you're not going to necessarily get the automatic support from Tallahassee to be like, oh, yes, let us help you with that. So, yeah, I think for sure you're going to have to get funding and be able to have some incentive to do it, just like you get from any other sort of green energy in theory, where they try to give you subsidies and support people. You know, you get municipalities and counties that can get subsidized and get different help from the federal government in terms of being able to afford these kinds of infrastructure programs. But to me, it seems like it would be a better way to deal with flooding than just flooding. So, you know.
Yeah. And it is only a problem that is going to get worse. And so for everyone who is just trying to make excuses for, well, this is just an unusual circumstance. And look, it is an unusual circumstance for such extended rain to basically hover over South Florida when you consider the wind patterns and the cloud patterns and what have you. However, there's no telling how the climate is going to act going forward. We're not able to necessarily see these things coming, you know, sooner rather than later. We usually have at least somewhat of an idea of what's in front of us, but in this case, we really don't. And this is just the start of the hurricane season. There's no telling how this might unfold over the course of the summer. It could be rough. But when you feel like you don't really have anybody who's really trying anything and who's just kind of really working on your behalf, that's where the empathy factor, just kind of sets in with everybody. They may want to change, but it just seems like there's sort of a lack of a fight amongst a lot of people, especially in South Florida, wanting to try to salvage something when the writing on the wall suggests that we could be on borrowed time and no telling how much time that really is. Why should people have optimism, and why should people be supporting your campaign in spite of all the roadblocks we've seen for so very long?
Well, what's the alternative? What's the alternative? Just sit around and do nothing? Does somebody see a better plan? I'm very open to other suggestions. I never sought out wanting to do this. I never said, oh, I want to be in Congress. That's what I want to do with. So if somebody has a better solution or a better, chance of getting the corporate money out and trying to represent regular people, I don't know. This is my option. This was sort of my contribution to that effort. But I honestly don't know what else we would do. What else do we do?
Well, we're fighting the fight as best we can. And obviously, we've got a lot coming up. For those of you who would like to support the efforts of the campaign, especially if you're local and want to get involved, gen2024.org is a place to go to sign up, because this is how the campaign will be won. And it can be won, but it's going to require a lot of effort on the ground. And of course, I'm going to have to do a lot of it. And so is Jen. And we have some really amazing supporters, just like last time. Hopefully even more this time. Fundraising is going well.
Fundraising is going well. I've been dialing for dollars, and actually that's what I was going to be doing right now, but you interrupted my West Coast call time. But
well, I won't keep you any longer. You've been here long enough. I think I can kick you off.
I know. Where is Declan when you need him?
I don't know. He may still be watching. He just doesn't feel like commenting. But now that you are here, he may find his way in to make a statement. But thank you, Mario. Your support is obviously appreciated. And of course, there's a reason why we call her Double K, because it's always going to be 2 shots of 50. And in this case, thank you for at least making the show still worth doing. So I can make I don't really make a few bucks, but I want to make sure that our guys are taken care of. That's important. I don't need to, I want to keep you out of commentary on other political candidates and obviously AOC. So any parting thought, I'll take care of that. That'll be my
I honestly haven't been following it, so I wouldn't be able to really have any, insightful commentary on it, because I haven't been following it. And I don't, because the truth is it's very easy to be Monday morning quarterback for a lot of this stuff. And I don't know a lot of this stuff.
Triple K. Yeah.
I don't know a lot of what goes on behind the scenes. We can speculate, but we don't really know. And we don't know what they're threatened with. So it's hard for me to judge what they end up doing.
Well, I do think that they are going to have some victories. It should be expected. Right now.
What's going on with Jamal's race? My understanding is that the polling doesn't look good.
Well, there was a poll that was done that apparently was extremely favorable to Latimer, but even still, if the poll is favorable, you can only sway it so far before it just becomes clear that the momentum really does rest with the challenger. If you want to hang around a little longer, I could do the Latimer clip, which we're going to do. And so he apparently is up 17 points in a skewed poll. But again, there are polls that suggest that the race is neck and neck. Look, this race comes down to one variable. This is a race between the Bronx and Westchester County, New York. It's pretty obvious that that's how this race has been set up. The brown working class versus the white affluent class is ultimately what is going to decide this race. AIPAC has made it their mission that they are going to get one of the squad members, and it does look like Jamal Bowman is the most likely current representative who's going to get knocked off. They didn't get Summer Lee. They're not going to get Rashida Tlaib. I don't know what the story is with Ilhan Omar. Obviously, AOC is not going to be touched. What's going to happen with Cori Bush? I don't know. It does look like she's trending in a better direction than she was before. A lot of people do not like her opponent, Wesley Bell. But then again, where she's running, in St. Louis is significantly different than running in New York City, where the biggest Zionist population in the country resides. And so having to fend off that part of the electorate, and I'm willing to bet that if you look at the way that the district lines changed between 2020, when Jamal Bowman first won, versus now, when he's attempting to get into his third election, the district lines probably did change, and they got a sense that they could get him with the right challenger. And so they got this guy, George Latimer, who was, I think he's the committee man of Westchester County of the Democratic Party. And so he was given the grace of all graces by getting the endorsement of Hillary Clinton, among other people, the other day. Now, Hillary Clinton does live in Chappaqua, which is in the district. I'm pretty sure it is, in Westchester County. My aunt, who was an infectious disease doctor in the Bronx, lived in Harrison, which is one of the communities that is in Westchester County that is in this congressional district. And if you see the homes that are in these places, I'm not going to say where, but for those of you who, I know Jen doesn't know who this person is, but for those of you who know who Harry Sisson is, who is one of those Gen Z Democrat Party sycophant TikTokers that, you know, is basically paid to support the Democratic Party.
I feel like that name is familiar. Maybe he was a bootlicker at some point.
Yeah, I think so. Well, he lives in one of those communities as well. I know this for a fact. And so this is who this particular representative is up against. He's up against the affluent, you know, McMansion, neoliberal voter that our friends Keaton and Russell over Do Dissonance like to point out constantly is who is living in these particular parts. And it is understandable that it is going to be tough for Jamal Bowman to keep his seat. Now, look, I don't think Jamal Bowman is without his flaws. He's not a good, he's an okay representative, but he's not bought and paid for by corporate special interests. You better believe George Latimer is bought and paid for by corporate special interests. He's taken more money in this election cycle as of today. That could change if you catch my drift after the next week and a half. But as of right now, he is taking heavy seven-figure money from AIPAC to win this race. And when you get millions upon millions of dollars put behind you, it's very hard to fight that off. Now, here's where things get interesting. And as we mentioned, Hillary Clinton, of course, comes out and gives her very poorly nuanced reason as to why she decided to endorse against a sitting incumbent who also happens to be black. Remember, the Democratic Party constantly wants to remind you about how important the black vote is, just not in this race, or any race for that matter, that gets in the way of corporate special interests, because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Nothing else. There is nothing else. Do you think people truly like and love Debbie Wasserman Schultz? Yes, she's got her sycophants that are still there. But for the most part, the reason they love her is because she is as ready, willing, and able to be sacrificed at the altar of corporate special interests for the Democratic establishment as any representative in Congress. No matter how distasteful and unlikable she is, she will do the job. And for the powers that be, that's what matters to them. And that's where somebody like this guy getting into power is not entirely surprising, as bad as he is. So we'll hear just a little bit of the wonderful rhetoric that is coming from what could be the next congressional representative from New York's 16th district.
Have another President Trump because of the lack of action from my opponent and so many others on these issues.
We may have a President Trump because Jamal is good at talking, but not good at delivering.
We should not be sending any more weapons at this time to Israel. They are engaged in collective punishment by killing mostly women, children, and babies in Gaza.
What the congressman fails to mention in all of this is the role that Hamas has played. It's not merely a simple condemnation of.
I'm sorry. I don't want to. You always get on me, but I can't.
Don't go there. Don't go there.
Fine. Well, you all just be the judge, okay? I'm not saying anything.
Just tell me which eye to look at.
You couldn't help yourself.
What they did. What they did that day on October 7th triggered everything that has followed after.
Hi, this is George Latimer with a message to my fellow Democrats. I'm voting for President Biden tomorrow in New York's presidential primary, and I urge you to join me and vote for President Biden.
There was a
President
primary?
Biden deserves our support as Democrats. He came into office with our nation facing a collapsed economy and a pandemic, which was made worse by science deniers. He's brought with him a faith in our democracy and a renewed sense of what it means to be an American, with the values of strength, unity, and resilience. And this election is about more than President Biden and his record. It's also about the dangers represented by his opponent. Donald Trump has made it clear that his intention is to override our democracy. He has no respect for the rule of law. He has coddled foreign dictators, and he's threatened our NATO allies. And his willingness to embrace forms of bigotry and extremism to gain power makes him unfit to hold this office.
That sounds like a
including
speech that
allies
was
of my
written to him by
opponent,
Hillary
have suggested that Democrats should withhold support for President Biden because they do not like his commitment to the state of Israel. Please don't do this.
Here's the problem. It has been well documented that the people that are donating to Vladimir's campaign are contributors to the GOP, and especially to Donald Trump, because they believe that he's going to do an even better job regarding the state of Israel. So when you're out there and you're talking about or saying what you're saying, we all know that this isn't true, because he is saying unequivocally that he is going to be a representative of the United States of Israel, which again is probably the same mission of the president. But I also think that the president understands that his re-election opportunity is basically slipping away from him almost completely, to the point at which this could end up being a landslide for Trump. That's how bad things are getting at this point. We don't even have to get into the cognitive issues that the president is dealing with. Just this one issue alone is so significant. And you have this guy here trying to stand on ceremony as if to suggest that he isn't part of the problem. The problem that we do face in the political arena is that very few people are able to put two and two together. Now, what we are going to play is this quick clip that basically shows the depravity and the true nature of how somebody like George Vladimir really thinks. He was on a Zoom debate with Representative Bowman the other day, and this is what he had to say about those that support Representative Bowman.
Rational government in White Plains that has advanced us in every area of public policy, all of a host of things that we've done. And he will tell you that what we've done in White Plains isn't good enough. What we've done is accomplish things. What he's done is give speeches all across the country. And when you get as much money as you get from outside the district, your constituency is Dearborn, Michigan. Your constituency is San Francisco, California. It's not Harrison. It's not Tuckahoe.
So then by his
not
standards, his constituency is AIPAC. So it's okay. And this is something that we got crap from like people like that. This is one of the talking points Debbie uses, is that we'll take money from all over the country. So who do we answer to? But the thing is that most
I don't know. I think you've gotten a lot of donations, big donations from people who live in the district this time.
I have, but at the end of the day, it's like they actually don't understand that most people are okay with you taking donations from all other people all over the country, more so than they like you taking donations from AIPAC.
Well, the fact that he brought up Dearborn, Michigan and San Francisco, to me, is clear as day that is a dog whistle if there ever was.
Yeah.
Because when you say Dearborn, Michigan, you're talking about the #1 city in the United States with the largest Muslim population, period. And the fact that he felt that that was necessary to say, when we all know that the biggest reason why Rashida Tlaib has not been primaried out of Congress is because Dearborn protects her. And they know it, because no one has been. Rashida Tlaib has made it very clear that Joe Biden should lose the state of Michigan, which effectively will lose him the presidency.
I don't see how he can win Michigan. I really don't.
I don't either. And listen, we love Sean Fain and the UAW, and they're going to do what they have to do politically to help the president try to stave off what is going to be maybe the most highly contested swing state when it's all said and done. But at the end of the day, we cannot fault the Muslim community for choosing to take on Donald Trump once again. And whether that's who they want, it's probably not who they want. I wouldn't want him. But I certainly
they don't want to.
understand that there has to be a political price to pay for the actions of a president who has aided and abetted a genocide as we stand. And there is no way of getting around that.
Hey,
One of our
Leo.
most amazing supporters locally. We love you, Leo. Hope to see you on
Leo.
Saturday, brother.
Well, we're gonna look. We're waiting to see what happens with the weather. We have to be at least, aware of the situation. I'm not going out in a storm.
Well, it's not supposed to rain on Sunday, so keep that in mind if we ever want to make an exception. That I know for sure. I know it's not. I know it's just going to be overcast on Sunday. So maybe that's the better play. Maybe we have to consider that's rather than take a risk, we should probably think about that as an option. But nevertheless, and then he brings up why is he first of all, do you know who brings up San Francisco? The GOP brings up San Francisco. They always point to San Francisco as the reason why the Democrats suck. Listen, there are many reasons to suggest why the Democrats suck. But again, it's another dog whistle when you talk about San Francisco. It's the LGBTQ capital of the United States. So why is he talking about that? What is his motivation? That this is supposed to be a Democrat representative who's coming in? I wish more and more people would recognize that everything is all about political calculation. They do not care about any of these issues that working class people care about. This is all about money and power. And Vladimir has made it very clear that he is willing to sell out to the highest bidder, period. At least he's transparent about that as far as I can see.
Yeah. And can we say kudos to the League of Women Voters? Can we give a shout out to my League ladies?
Well, will the League ladies do you know what? If they're doing this, they should be doing one between you and Debbie. I'm just saying.
They won't. I know, but they won't. And I'm not going to engage.
We'll finish it up.
Guys, you're not even there to be part of the events of those communities. So I think, what has to happen in the next 2 years is you send somebody to Washington, a serious legislator. You know what I've done. You know what I can do. You know what I'll do when I come back home to connect with you.
What a prick. But again, money talks and justice walks in many instances.
It seems to me like he was basically picked by someone like Hillary and her ilk to basically just go in there to take out Jamal Bowman. And
well, they had to pick somebody that at least has some name ID, and he clearly does in Westchester. But that's, like I said, that's what this election comes down to. It comes down to, can Bowman get out the vote in the Bronx at a time where there is a lot of voter apathy? People don't believe in listen, even though Jen has done a really solid job, all things considered, even we're having trouble. People are just giving up. How could you not? And especially with what you have on the menu and the fact that the Democrats rid the primary again to make sure that the president couldn't be challenged, that they basically threw everything out, and now they want you to roll out the red carpet for him and get on the ground and fight for him. I mean, come on. They don't even offer anything.
Yeah.
And you can only say so many times, oh, look at the guy over there. He's going to get us. He's going to get us. Unless you're fundamentally changing people's lives for the better.
And again, people, I would suggest, and anybody, and I spent a lot of time today on the phone with people who their primary concern is losing democracy because of Donald Trump. As soon as someone says, when I say, what's your primary issue? And they're like, just maintaining democracy. I know that to them, that means they're scared of Donald Trump. And I will posit this because it seems very credible to me that we've already lost the democracy. The fact that these are the choices that we're looking at, somebody who just had 30-something felony convictions and somebody who's committing a genocide are the options. I would suggest we already don't have much of a democracy. So that, again, I'm not seeing the choice.
I agree. This is the last clip, and this is, I believe, an ad. I think this was Bowman's ad against Vladimir. Let's see.
The Cuomo Emmett Till thing that she refers to, I think I have the text in front of me. You wrote, I think, on Facebook, in our world, no matter how heinous the crime.
I deleted it, Brian. I put it on Facebook. I was angry at the time. I deleted it within a half an hour. I thought better of it. It was a foolish tweet. I have said so, and I deleted it at the time. It is not reflective of the broader way that I deal with circumstances like this, but I recognize it was a foolish set of words. It was hurtful to some people, and I deleted it. Now, having deleted it within a half an hour of my posting it, people wanted to find my whole career based on that. And when I say that I grew up where I did, that is the environment I grew up in. I am not trying to establish anything other than a framework for my life. And when my opponent talks about he grew up in public housing, I grew up in the situation as well, and that's all I'm trying to reference.
I'm not sure what he's referring to. Like, I'm not sure.
So he made a comment about Emmett Till and prosecution, and all I can say is you can tell that this guy is not somebody who represents working people at all.
Oh, for sure. Well, first of all, isn't okay, he was endorsed by Hillary Clinton. Say no more. As far as I'm concerned, that says everything I need to know about this man. I wouldn't need to do an ounce of research. Not even a little bit. If he's endorsed by her, he's not good for anybody but people like her.
And that's the problem with this congressional district, because there is such a stark contrast between one part of it and the other part of it. We have swings in demographics in this congressional district, but nothing like that. That is in a whole other level. I mean, we have very poor sections here that need help, and we have very affluent suburbs that don't need any. But when you're talking about the Bronx and Westchester County, New York, Westchester County, New York has been at various times in the top 5 richest counties in the country. So they don't need help at all. What they want is basically a talking head so that they can feel good about who's representing them and not have to wonder about the ills of society. The people who slave themselves day in and day out in places like the Bronx.
Do you know the numbers in terms of like what I'm curious? I mean, and I'm sure Jamal's people have done the math in terms of the normal voter turnout, what the percentages are in
low.
Which county versus like, what are the odds of him getting his voters out as much as it is getting the people up in like, Scarsdale out?
But that's the thing. You see, he is going to get his voters out because they're spending millions of dollars to make sure that they do. That's the point.
I'm talking about Jamal Bowman. Is he going to be able to get his voters out to counteract what this guy's getting up from his little Scarsdale area?
Well, that remains to be seen. And of course, they are planning a rally in New York City on, is it this Saturday? I think it is this weekend, as a matter of fact. It's going to be Bernie and AOC, and I believe a few other people sprinkled in. Look, I just hope that if they are going to do this, that Bowman's team has a plan for a massive canvassing effort with the thousands of people that hopefully will show up for the rally. If you have a rally, that's the thing. You can have a rally, but if you don't have a plan to execute as a result of the rally, then there's no point in having it. A whole bunch of people show up, that's great. But what are you asking them to do? If you're not there trying to engage the voters and make sure that they're out there doing what they need to do, then there really isn't a point. And so I hope that they are prepared. And no, Double K, it is not an open primary. It is a closed primary. In fact, New York has some of the strictest primary voting rules in the United States, maybe the most strict.
Don't they, like, you have to be registered party affiliate way further in advance than we do here?
You needed to be registered as a Democrat in New York for this election, I believe, like around Valentine's Day. Like, that's how far out you have to be prepared to do this. Now, for people that live in very working class areas, this is not top of mind. This is not something that they're focused on. But when you're dealing with people that live in places like Harrison, in places like Purchase, in places like Rye, they have the ways and means. They have the money. Chappaqua, they have the ways and means. They just need to be told, oh, yeah, you need to make sure you register as a Democrat by this date. And word will spread, especially there. I mean, that, like I said, that's Zionist heaven. And it is unfortunate, but it might ultimately, be what does Jamal Bowman in. And don't think for a second, and listen, you guys know me. I don't play into any of the woke shit. But if you think that there is not a racial element at play here between Bowman and Latimer, you're a fucking idiot. That's all I can say. And I don't mince words on that one because that's clear. There is no question. But remember this, the Democratic Party, if they pull off this coup, because that's what it is, because nobody in the Democratic Party is coming, besides a few people, are coming to Jamal Bowman's aid. This is a full court press from people like Hillary Clinton, from Mondaire Jones.
Yep.
And when the president of the United States and the vice president of the United States don't say a goddamn word about this race, they're basically saying, yeah, we support George Latimer too.
Well, it's just interesting. And as somebody who's challenging an entrenched incumbent, and all you ever get from every Democratic Party, local, state, whatever, is we don't get involved in primaries. We don't get involved. You shouldn't challenge sitting incumbents. There's enough GOP people to go after. Why do Democrats go after their own? And all of those are now the people that are supporting ousting Jamal Bowman. So they only care about protecting incumbents when it's people that they really like. It isn't some principle of like, we protect incumbents, clearly.
And the big difference that you have going for you in your race versus their race is that New York is a pretty solid blue state, despite all of the brouhaha that's been going on. Florida is a red state now, and it basically became one under Debbie's watch. And a lot of people recognize that. And so while they may not be advocating to keep her there, they're not going to support you, but that presents an opportunity that would generally not be there. You can only, ram this state into the ground so many times before eventually people are just like, yeah, I don't really like Jen Perlman, but I don't think Debbie Wasserman Schultz is doing us any favors. Whereas in New York and in that particular area, I mean, it's kind of like a race if we were dealing with the old district lines. And if you still had Aventura and Surfside, that's a level of affluence in very protected areas that we would not be able to get to. And that is sort of the same issue that people are dealing with, having to get into those gated, wealthy communities in the Westchester suburbs. That is the same type of problem that he's going up against. Now, he does have the incumbent advantage. If this was an open seat race, Latimer would already be won. It would already be over. But the fact of the matter is, Bowman is the incumbent. He has established himself. It's not a one term. He's had 2 terms, and he's probably built up some good, what I would consider decorum with certain people, even though the powers that be are trying to put the thumb on the scale. So can he get the vote out? If he can, I think it'll be a close race. It wouldn't surprise me one way or the other. But it is unfortunate that it takes this level of depravity to get out a representative who actually, for all intents and purposes, is probably on paper doing a pretty decent job, all things considered. And I don't want to hear shit about him pulling the fucking fire alarm. You get that's why you kick him out of Congress. You'll keep somebody in Congress who votes for every fucking war, but because he's on your side, you'll keep him there. And yet, because Bowman pulled a fire alarm, that's a reason to get him out. That's why people hate fucking politics.
So you see Henry's comment on Debbie's Facebook page. There seem to be tons of brainwashed supporters raving about her, but I got at least one person who like my replies to someone else doesn't like her. Yeah, Henry, I have this theory, and this doesn't just apply that I think to Debbie's page, but I also have this very strong suspicion about Richie Torres's followers. I don't think they're real people. I mean, they're real people, but I think they're paid bot farms. I think that these people pay people to do that on their page because otherwise they would be ratioed to high heaven. So I think there's no, because if you look at also how a lot of the comments are, people are generally, even sycophantic people don't necessarily obviously sound so sycophantic. It's almost so gratuitous, some of these supporters. So yeah, I don't think a lot of them are legitimate. I think they're paid.
Henry, I would like you to do me a favor. I would like you to email me directly. I'm dropping my email in the chat right now. I have a couple of things I want to discuss with you regarding that. So please shoot me a message as soon as you can. Peter@gen2024.org. We'll go over it. We've had some shuffling on the shuffleboard court. I will be taking a more active role helping out. I will not be compensated, and I have to say that for my deposition if I ever have to take one in the future. Because
I don't get compensated. I haven't been compensated in 5+ years.
No, I have to say that for different reasons that we will not mention, but I have to say that, which I'm not. And there is nothing under the table or any of that shit. So
no, he doesn't get anything. I can assure you, he's eating out of my because he gets nothing.
Well, I mean, I'll just see peanut butter out of the jar if I have to. I mean, you do what you got to do. But We appreciate you coming on tonight. Guys, please go to gen2024.org if you haven't already to sign up to volunteer if you can. We are organizing our phone banks, which is going to be very important. We know a lot of you are helping out Jamal Bowman right now. His election is in 11 days. After his election is over, there is going to be there's going to be a couple of other races, obviously, of importance. Of course, the most important is likely going to be Cori Bush's race in St. Louis against Wesley Bell. Wesley Bell is catching a lot of heat right now, which is good, and totally different type of district. And that's the Midwest. That's the heartland. Totally.
So is
different
he
attitude.
basically like a repeat of what she went up against in the first
No,
place?
the amazing thing about Wesley Bell is that people are seeing what a turncoat he really is and how he's doing it. He's doing it all for the money, and everyone can see through it. And that's going to hurt because in the black community, they don't like that shit. When you can basically show them that this guy was doing one thing at one time, but now that AIPAC basically came in and bought his ass and he's just doing it, he doesn't actually believe in those principles. Don't think that people on the street in the black communities don't see that. They do see it, and they care when people are when you lie to them, they don't like that at all. That's where the line gets drawn.
No, I will say this. I see people talking in the chat about hoping to make my donation soon, saving up during a raining day. See, people, I don't want people like sending me their last dollars. But quite honestly, yeah, that's so sweet. If you guys are all following us on whatever your social media are, and you're sharing it and you're liking it and you're even commenting, that really helps. It really helps. So like if you are somebody that is like a typical person in this country and you're just sort of like working and trying to survive, I don't want people sending me their like last dollars. I don't want that. That's not what this is about. This is about like people using what they do have to support people that don't. Not asking people that don't to give whatever little bit they have. I mean, that's not good for me.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend that you're all following on social media. Make sure
that is good for me.
That matters. Make sure that you're always commenting, liking, and sharing. There's also a YouTube channel, but that's generally only done for streams. But with that said, all of that effort does help. You know, donating is wonderful, but if your pennies are pinched, that's why you sign up for phone banking if you don't live down here. That's why you do text banking. That's why you support on social media. And that's why, Henry, and I hope you will, email is already sent. Fantastic.
He said he already sent it.
So we will talk, and I will give you some pointers, and I will do the same for anybody. If you would like to help out the campaign, especially through social media, there are ways to do it. And remember, kill them with kindness. That's how you do it. Incendiary behavior doesn't work. But friendly behavior could work. And I've learned on the campaign trail that even the most ardent, stereotypical Debbie voter, with few exceptions, of course, there's always the ones that are not nice, but it is what it is. But you would be surprised how many people are looking around thinking, my God, maybe we do need a shot in the arm right now. That's real. And so any help can be tremendously helpful to the efforts that Jen's campaign is doing. I'll hold down the fort on the show. Jen's got phone calls that she's got to make for the next hour or so. That's the beauty of calling the time zones that go.
And for anybody who's questioning that, like, why is she phone banking now? We have it broken down. So I'll be calling my West people, my West Coast people.
Listen, there's a lot of money in California. There's a lot of money in Hawaii. So there's no reason not to be calling them if this is the appropriate time. Don't forget.
They're not that generous in California, let me tell you.
Okay, well, Washington
They're not
State.
that generous in California. Let me tell you, I have a list here. New York City, Washington, D.C., and California are the least generous places that I have phone dialed, and I'm just keeping track.
Let's think about this for a second. What do New York City, Washington, D.C., and for the most part, the state of California have in common? They are the neoliberal capital. It's the neoliberal capital of the United States. So when you we appreciate that you're a Democrat, but why can't you go run against a Republican?
Exactly.
But Debbie's still a Democrat, and you're not doing our party any favors by doing this. So it's not surprising that that's where the majority of them are coming from. Unless, of course, the powers that be tell them otherwise. And then in that case, vote against the black incumbent in favor of the wealthy, supporter in the burbs in New York City. Like that's, if they're told by the powers that be, then it matters, but not in your case. You are certainly different, but certainly appreciated for all your hard work and efforts. And thank you for coming
You're
on.
not that nice to me when there's not an audience.
I do my best, but in this case, I've got a lot to do right now. So break a leg. Thanks for coming on. Hope you guys enjoyed the surprise. See you soon. So I hope that that was enjoyable for everybody. And we do have one more clip that I'm going to go through. I know a lot of people have very strong opinions about AOC these days, and rightfully so. Most, if not all, of her maneuvering is heavily politically calculated. A lot of people are. I mean, they do that all the time. But she is in New York City, and for those of you who obviously know, New York City has the largest Jewish population by far in the United States. South Florida has the second largest, but there is no question that there is a lot of pressure that is put on a lot of these representatives by the Israel lobby, and of course, just the Jewish community as a whole. It goes without saying that AOC has very, very large political ambitions for her career. No two ways about it. Is she trying to run for president in 28? I think it's possible. It wouldn't surprise me. I still think if she really thinks she's going to mount a challenge to become a real political force, she's going to have to get to the upper chamber. And that would require her challenging Kirsten Gillibrand, which I believe would be in 26, I want to say. I believe that's when her reelection would be. She's not going to run for governor, because she's not going to give up her seat. That's the other thing. You see, I'm not really sure what she's going to do. She could run for president and not give up her seat. But if she were to run for Senate, she would have to do that because it's the state law, which I believe is how that works. And so she decided to do an interview the other day. And let's just say the equating of anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism is now taken over her rhetoric, and it's very sad to see.
Really excited for us to be doing this. In a minute, we're going to be hearing from two of the foremost experts from some of the most foremost experts in the country in fighting anti-Semitism in America. And before we get to that panel, though, I want to talk a little bit about why we're doing this, and most importantly, why we're doing it now. Anti-Semitism, hate, and violence against Jews because of their identity is real, and it is dangerous. It is also important to say here in this moment and during that conversation that criticism of the Israeli government is not inherently anti-Semitic, and criticism of Zionism is not automatically anti-Semitic. That being true does not mean that we should not recognize when criticism and when that criticism crosses a line into real harms against our Jewish community.
So what exact harm do you think is being caused? The kids are uncomfortable in school. Imagine how the Palestinians feel. And that's not even talked about. Is it reasonable to suggest that there is anti-Semitic fervor that has grown leaps and bounds in the United States? Yes, it has. And I wonder why. It's not hard to see why. Look at the protests that just happened. Do you think Alex was paying attention to the protests that happened earlier today when people were walking in the streets of Manhattan? The peaceful protesters are the Free Palestine people. The aggressive counter-protesters are the people in support of Israel, the Zionists. I saw that footage as clear as you guys saw it. It's just so obvious. Now, for those of you who don't know, Amy Spittelnick, CEO of the JCPA, this is a Zionist organization, if there ever was one. Full on. You should read up on some of the comments that she's made. What Alex is hoping to accomplish by having somebody like this on, who apparently is completely juxtaposed to her position, at least that's what she wants you to believe, of all the people that you could have on your live stream, podcast, whatever it is that she's doing, this doesn't make any sense. Like at all. This makes zero sense. But clearly, Amy's got a few things to say, so let's hear them.
One showing up at these protests, speaking out against the war in Gaza with a broad brush, it makes it that much harder to effectively call out real anti-Semitism, and instead it just seeks to divide us. At the same time, as we've talked about here, we've seen the line crossed in too many cases in ways that cause direct harm to Jews, and that ultimately threatens all of us. And so for me, the guiding principle for all of this work is to understand that no one's going anywhere. Jews, Arab Americans, Muslim Americans here in the United States, Israelis and Palestinians in the region, all of our futures are inextricably bound up with one another. And in fact, the only future in which I'm safe as a Jewish American woman is one in which my Arab American, Muslim, Black, immigrant, LGBTQ neighbors are safe, and vice versa. And so too is the only future in which Israel and the Israeli people are truly safe and finally secure, one in which Palestinian children and all people are finally safe and free.
I don't know if you caught that statement, but I did. Did you hear what she said? She said, until all of the Israeli people are safe, will the Palestinian people be safe? Now, you could do with that what you want, but I didn't miss that, and that's pretty clear as day what she's implying. She's basically saying, well, if we have to kill them all, we have to kill them all as long as it makes us feel safe. We've already clipped at least 40,000 of them as far as we know, but we don't feel safe. So we got to kill them because they want to kill us, right? I mean, that's the justification as far as I can tell. You see, the thing about these well-paid propagandists is that they're very good with words, usually. In this case, she got caught. Now, how many people caught that statement? I don't know, but I caught it. And that's why I had to stop the video. Unless all of the Israeli people or the and they said Israeli people, but all the Jewish people are safe, then the Palestinian people can be safe. So Palestinian lives do not matter when somebody like her is talking. Now, she'll say what needs to be said, but the fact of the matter is she doesn't care. And does Alex know that that is the case? Who knows? Keep going.
And so that requires us to do the hard work to understand how in disagreeing over policies and protesting vehemently, we don't cross that line into harm, into eliminationist rhetoric, into anti-Semitism, and that we also not allow legitimate concerns and fears about anti-Semitism to be exploited to advance a broader extremist agenda that seeks to pit our communities against one another and undermine our fundamental democracy and our liberal values.
Well, she had to put that liberal value comment in there. I don't know. I don't think there's anything liberal about genocide. The thing that they really do not seem to get, and the thing that they really do not seem to accept, is that this is a genocide and that they will never be able to wipe their hands clean of this, no matter how many ways, no matter how many times they want to talk. And listen, is it possible? Is it even likely that there has been rape perpetrated on Israeli women? Certainly. It's very possible. I wouldn't discount that that could possibly happen. Do I think it's possible that anti-Semitism is scaring the shit out of certain people? Certainly. I think it's very possible. There is a genocide going on. There is mass famine. This is hell on earth for people that have nowhere to go. And everyone around the world is rallying behind the Palestinian people, not the Israelis. It's our country that is keeping them afloat. And if that's not bad enough, you wait until Netanyahu shows up on a month from now, 6 weeks from now, to speak on the Congressional House, on the Senate floor, I think is where he's going to do it. You can imagine what that's going to be like. There should be a 1 million-person march in D.C. against Netanyahu and against the Zionist movement. That's what should happen.
And I mean, that's so well said. And I think it also cuts to a different skill that we have, which is
so well said. You know, you pointed out in the chat, she got her hair done. She's got the I'm a smart person glasses on. No pushback. Nothing. If this was a real conversation, then there would at least be a slight push. Amy, I appreciate what you had to say, but I got to tell you, this is where we're coming from. This is where we stand right now. There is no pushback.
allyship, and that this isn't just like a term that is used in some saccharine way, but that it is a discipline and a practice.
Or cabals as stand-ins for Jews. And it's used ultimately to target not just Jews, but so many other communities to advance dehumanizing policies and to ultimately undercut our democracy, as we'll talk about. What's harder for us as progressives to recognize or understand is when
you are not a progressive. Stop using that word. But then again, the progressive word has been completely delegitimized. Got to stop using it, period. Because listen, even Thomas Massie, who, as I pointed out last show, is the best representative in the GOP, even he understands political gamesmanship. And he refers to AIPAC as funding progressive Democrats. Now, of course, AIPAC is funding Democrats like Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Do you think Debbie's a progressive? Do you think George Latimer is a progressive? Do you think Hillary Clinton is a progressive? Do you think Nancy Pelosi is a progressive? No, they're not. But they'll call themselves a progressive. So why shouldn't Thomas Massie refer to them as progressive? That's what they say they are. Words have meaning. This lady is not progressive. Anything but.
Anti-Semitism shows up and is normalized in our own spaces. And I want to be frank here. There is very real anti-Semitism that is in fact showing up in progressive spaces right now. And it's deeply painful and hurtful to Jews. As has been said, criticism of Israel, Israeli policies and its government, it's not inherently anti-Semitic. And the majority of people, students and others showing up to protest are there to speak out for Palestinian rights, not because they intend to be anti-Semitic. But we've seen the line into direct harm against Jews repeatedly crossed in recent months. And over the last 8 months, in certain ways, for me, it's been almost more personally painful to see what's happening in my own progressive community than, for example, what I saw in Charlottesville, because it's happening in my own community. We're seeing this manifest.
Did you really just compare Charlottesville to what's going on with peaceful protesting? I have always suggested that what happened in Charlottesville was bad. Part of it was overblown. They tried to make it like it was Stonewall all over again. But that was real violence. A guy literally drove through a protesting march, hit several people, and killed a person. I don't see any of that going on in any of these Free Palestine protests. These are extremely affluent and privileged people who do not want to feel any heat for anything that they do. There is a reason that they live in gated communities. There is a reason they live in high-rise buildings where you basically live in a fortress. And I'm sure Amy is no different. And Alex is just sitting there taking it, not even pushing back. They say the right words, but their actions always say something different.
In a number of ways. Some of the obvious ways, or I hope obvious ways. Celebration or denial of the October 7th attack, which, as I said, was the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Celebration or embrace of Hamas as a terrorist organization, labeling their actions creative resistance, chanting things like, "We want another October 7th."
The Palestinian people are under occupation and have been for over 75 years. In 2023 alone, prior to October 7th, almost 900 Palestinians were murdered by the IDF. But, you know, keep up with the rhetoric. It may work a little while longer. And eventually it's just going to die on deaf ears. And you can sit in your, I don't know, your tea and crumpets table and meander around about why everyone doesn't listen to you and how they all just don't get it and how you're the righteous ones and everyone else is stupid. It's a sense of entitlement and it's a sense of better than that they have created for themselves, this narrative that they believe in their own superiority. And Amy Spittleneck is no different.
Nationist rhetoric calling for Israel or Israelis or Jews to be wiped off the face of the earth, targeting Jews or Jewish institutions.
You're wiping the Palestinians off the face of the earth, lady.
Here for the actions of the Israeli government. My own synagogue was targeted in the fall. Conversation, we see how anti-Semitism is used to divide Jews from the very communities, the very pro-democracy coalitions we need to be in solidarity with right now. If our communities are pit against one another, if the vast majority of American Jews are being told they're unwelcome in progressive spaces because we have a connection to Israel or a relationship with Israel, that doesn't just make Jews isolated, unsafe, it makes all of us unsafe.
Israel is an apartheid state, period. Israel is not progressive at all. In fact, they have become one of the most right-wing nations in the world. But this is the rhetoric that they will continue to spew, and Alex just takes it with a head nod the entire way, doesn't even attempt to push back. There is a reason why people do not support her anymore, and it's understandable. Do I think that she's a failure and that she has nothing redeemable about her? No, I'm not going there. However, I do not sympathize with her losing the type of grassroots support that she thought she could hang on to while towing the line with this type of bullshit. At this point, this interview is over again, and this is clipped, but this is probably at least a dozen minutes in. She said nothing. She has said nothing to combat the bullshit coming out of this woman's mouth.
And we'll never be able to come together to advance the sort of inclusive future we need. Ultimately, our safety is inextricably linked and bound up with one another's and with our democracy. If we make sure that we're not letting our communities be pit against one another, we're not allowing this deeply painful moment to fracture the very coalitions we need more than ever, if we don't take on these increasingly dangerous and deadly and normalized conspiracies, we're going to ultimately lose our democracy here.
What's the conspiracy? That there's a genocide being perpetrated on the Palestinian people? What other conspiracy could she be talking about?
And so at the core of that fight is this recognition.
Thank you, Amy. It's very well said. How can someone starkly oppose the actions of the Netanyahu government while also avoiding anti-Semitism?
Look, if we want to be problem solvers, we have to be able to have respectful, evidence-based conversations that are totally free of identity-based biases. And if you make a judgment or an accusation about Israel that I think is wrong or unfair, I want to challenge you on the merits. I want to challenge your argument on the merits. And I think we can have those conversations. So Israel is a country like ours. It's subject to criticism and protest and tough language that may hurt my ears, that people.
Do we drop bombs on our own people? Not yet, but I don't want to give anybody ideas. Not a single word of criticism about Netanyahu or anything that Israel's been doing. I don't know who this Stacey Burdett is. I don't care. But maybe I should care because her glasses are fancy and her earrings are charming. Maybe that's enough of a reason to care. Let's finish it out.
Use to hold it accountable. And the parameters around that should be, how would we speak about this country, right? Political protest and criticism are the essence of democracy. And we also need to take care with that expression because we need it for our democracy. And so whenever we hear about nefarious control behind world events, or now we're talking about the conflict, evil control of government policy by Jewish billionaires or Zionist donors, those are just like the George Soros accusations that aim.
George Soros has been documented to have funded several political initiatives in the United States for his benefit. In addition to that, to suggest that there isn't a powerful Jewish lobby, or forget Jewish lobby, it's the Israel lobby, because there is a significant portion of the Jewish population that is not with this shit. The problem in the Jewish community is that there's still a code of silence amongst a lot of people that do not agree with this, but they're not going to speak up about it either. But the idea that she is going to spew this nonsense and Alex is still not going to say anything, is still not going to push back, not even a little bit, not even just like, look, lady, you're not telling the truth. This isn't true. The Israel lobby has had its hands in a lot of things that have gone on over the last 75 years plus, including a lot of wars that we ended up getting into, frankly, on their behalf. I'm not going to say anything more about that because I ain't going to get the finger pointed at me, but everyone knows that that's the case.
He described, this evil puppet master, trying to save democracy and support causes he cares about. So if your criticism of Israel is trafficking and stereotypes, you're really in the bigotry zone. I mean, stereotypes kill. That's how the Nazis got the German people to live with this so-called final solution.
You're committing a final solution on the Palestinian people. And it should come as no surprise that the two women that Alex brings onto her live stream are two Ashkenazi white women. They are not native to the land. That is something that also needs to be pointed out and doesn't get pointed out enough. But I'll point it out because you know me, I don't fucking care. You just gotta say the truth. It's better off being hated for the truth than being despised for a lie. And I won't lie. I think people need to hear these things. I appreciate Alex helping out Jamal Bowman. I appreciate her helping out other members of the squad. She will not help Jen. I guarantee it. She doesn't fight for policies on the Hill the way that one would hope that she would. She's probably done some decent stuff in her home district, and she's inspired a lot of people, especially in New York and around the country. She has support. There's no question that she does. But that's the danger of using your platform for these purposes, to basically whitewash what's going on overseas with people that need every second of every day to be moving in a positive direction. You platform women like this, who are as bloodthirsty as anybody in the Zionist movement. They just hide it better than others. Shame on Alex. It gets to the point where you really think you can juggle all of these balls in the air at one time. You can't do it. And I would normally give her the benefit of the doubt, but she has made so many missteps so many times, so often, that it no longer becomes an accident. It becomes deliberate. And it's a political calculation is what it is. She has big plans. She is very likely going to run for president. And if you think it's bad now, oh boy, you ain't seen nothing yet. Because if there's one thing Alex can do a lot better than Bernie Sanders, she can sell herself a lot better. She's young, she's attractive, she's multicultural. She speaks to maybe more than 2 languages. She's got a massive social media following. She'll be a threat, no question about it. And while a lot of people right now may not like her when they're faced with the prospect of voting for her and seeing what else is on the menu, a lot of people are going to support her because that's the system we have in front of us right now. And until that changes dramatically, I don't see how that's going to change. But, I digress on the fact that she is not the person that people were hoping she was going to be. And whether DC was what changed her, whether it was her own decision, or whether she was always like this, we just don't know. I can't say for sure. But it is a damn shame. And that, unfortunately, is a big part of why people have so much apathy towards politics these days. Because when you see things like that, you have to call it out. I will be very appreciative of her doing a rally with Bernie for Jamal Bowman because he needs help. No question he needs it. But no one's above reproach, and they shouldn't be. And we shouldn't feel bad about speaking truth to power at a time where we desperately need to do it. I don't believe that Alex is irredeemable. I don't think that she is a sinister person who secretly wants to help people, or hurt people, I should say. But she's ambitious, and she's being guided. There are people that are in her ear that are telling her that this is how you got to do it. If you're trying to build these coalitions in advance and make sure that you got your pieces on the chessboard ready to go when it's your turn, especially if you're going to go up against the likes of J.B. Pritzker and Gretchen Whitmer and Gavin Newsom. They're basically just guiding her and telling her how to do it. And she's listening because she wants it, because that's what matters to her. It doesn't mean that she doesn't care. It doesn't mean that there aren't issues that matter to her, like universal health care and a living wage and the Green New Deal. I'm sure those things matter to her. But she also sees this as a zero-sum game. If you don't get the brass ring, you can't make these things happen. And she's doing what she thinks she has to do in order to get it. I don't agree with her. I think there's a much better way to do it. And you could still do it nuanced, but this ain't nuanced. Without speaking up forcefully the way that you need to, many more people are going to die as a result. Now, is it the blood on your hands? That's debatable. But this interview, this shit you just did, way out of bounds. And you know it. There is no way you didn't know who Amy Spittleneck was before you brought her on. And if you did, you're incompetent. And if you didn't know, you're incompetent. If you did know, then that kind of is sinister. To Ray J, to Self-Care Maven, to Chris Garrett, to Henry Kajawa, to Steve Grossman, to David Hunter, to the 7 sacraments of health. I'm curious to what they are. I try to live a very healthy lifestyle, so that type of thing is always interesting to me. To Mario, to Nelson Ortega, to Double K, or should I say Triple K, to Zero Joshua, to Yes But No, to Leonardo, my Italian brother, to 7th level of hell, which I think we can all agree is kind of what we feel like we're circling right now, to Tony DeMeo, to Base Chad Thunderjack, to Colinello, to Nishaba Chamak Shuti. I think I got that right. Maybe not, but I tried. So effort has to count for something, right? To all of you guys, tremendously appreciated. Hope you all enjoyed the live stream. Hope you enjoyed seeing Jen make an appearance. And we have to keep fighting the good fight. The reason we do this show is so that you don't lose faith, because it's really all we got. And that's why Jen would be different if she were able to get to Congress. She understands the score. And you know how I know that she'll be different? Because I'll be there. And I really have zero fucks to give. I've got a career. I've got a career that cannot be stopped by the system. So if you're not currently involved, get involved. Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. Appreciate each and every one of you, and we'll see you Monday.